Hey everybody, welcome back to your free TV. It is Friday, October 24th, 2025. So glad to be back with you here on the channel. Welcome back to our free TV. And I want to say thank you to everybody supporting the channel. Thank you, Colleen, for the donation. Everyone supporting monthly. I'm so appreciative. We're just going to jump in here with the disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution, protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. And I will plug at the end of the channel for the awesome c60evo.com/YAFTV. Code YAFTV for 10% off. I'll talk about them at the end of the video. So we're just going to jump in with the news. I'm so glad to be back with you on a Friday, of course. Friday, TGIF, right? And so we're going to jump in. We have Trump, of course, leaving tonight for his longest trip since his, this presidency. And he's going to Asia for the ASEAN meetup with all of the Asian leaders. And a very long trip for him, basically a week, a little less than a week, because I believe he'll be back next Thursday after meeting with Xi, who seems to be the last meetup on the list after meeting with all the other Asian leaders. So very big trip, lots going on. Of course, I talked about this possibility of a huge shifting going on in the CCP government. A lot of people are saying, oh, that's not happening, it's not real. Well, it does appear to be real. We have Xi surviving this fallout. However, you have top trade advisors, the trade negotiators that are meeting with Besant being taken away, taken out of the negotiation process. A lot of shifting going on. Some talk that Trump might be meeting with the leader of North Korea here on a little side trip. It's going to be a very, very big week. And it's also very interesting that's happening during this week is, of course, 3IAtlas is still roaming through, not roaming, it seems to be on a very clear trajectory of its own, spiraling here, meeting its closest point to the Earth coming up on the 29th. So Trump will be in Asia at that time. And I just think it's a very interesting coinkydink here that we have the entire government shut down, right? A lot of the administration heading to Asia, basically everybody, not around as this government shutdown is going on. NASA conveniently shut down. Everything about 3IAtlas, never hear it anywhere, okay, on mainstream news, at least certainly not lately, but it's happening, okay, and it is this plasma interstellar object that is coming through our atmosphere and coming through our galaxy and going to be closest to Earth on the 29th, and Trump will be in Asia at that time. So it's a very interesting thing, and so in this video I will be covering some things connected with that, and I'll jump into it. It does seem to sort of replicate or basically be in accordance with maybe the Hopi prophecy of the blue Kachina and the arrival of the blue star and this awakening and all of this that comes with it. But it definitely has the 3IAtlas, which is this interstellar object moving through our galaxy and getting closest to Earth in the next few days, is unexplainable and doesn't follow any science that we know. Okay, it has its own seeming propulsion, its own off-gassing, its own light, and what could be a communication that it is putting out with these pulses. And so that's all happening. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big deal. And the fact that there's just nothing about it, and it's just the strangest object we've ever had that's massive and hurtling through the galaxy at 60 kilometers per second is a pretty big deal. And by the time it gets closest to Earth, it's up to 68 kilometers per second. And so I think that's a pretty big deal. So I'm going to also get into some stuff with the Neutrino directed energy weapon technology, all these interconnections that I think are going on. So, but of course, looking at the thumbnail, we've got, of course, this, and also a question with what I just said, of the Gerald Ford battle carrier group now coming to the Caribbean. This is the most advanced battle carrier group that the USA has. Of course, nuclear powered, nuclear capabilities, just the most advanced systems coming to the Caribbean, leaving the Middle East. And also a very interesting timing here, just right off, the southern point of the USA, where we're going to have this massive defense system set up. And of course, this is also hugely with Venezuela and everything going on with Mexico and the attack on the cartels. And it has everything to do with why Trump changed the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War. And that gets into the fact that the USA is no longer to be the police person of the world, operating on defense to secure democracy across the world, which has been a giant just cash cow of stealing everything from America, but to basically say we are going to reorient towards hemispheric defense, and we're going to stop the war against America that is happening. There is war being waged against America to totally destroy in this controlled demolition of the last guardian of liberty in the world. And we're going to shift to destroy the people who are destroying us. And right now, that is the massive focus on cartels, money laundering, the trafficking of the black budget. Okay, everything that creates that black budget and has everything to do with deep state CIA since after World War II, the creation of this whole massive intelligence apparatus that has stripped us dry of all of our money and resources and been used to make money for the elite across the world, and of course the creation of the globalist cabal, all of it. And so much of that now running through places like Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia, etc. And the attack on it is also, of course, a shot across towards the Chinese and everything coming out with their efforts for their 100-year plan, of course, to dominate the globe. So let's jump in. I wanted to mention something first as we go. There is, interestingly, this group of a French, I think it's the last French foundry, the people who do sculpture in France, this guild of this French foundry is creating this massive sculpture to gift to the USA, and basically saying, yeah, keep the Statue of Liberty. And we know there's so much about the Statue of Liberty and all the Masonic reference and all of that. And this group of foundry workers is creating what they say will be the tallest statue ever created, ever in the history of the world. And it's basically this, it's kind of like a Romanesque huge man holding the globe. And I believe it's called the Guardian of Liberty. And the first word might be wrong, something of liberty, protecting liberty, meaning the USA, as a gift to the USA to be completed by July 4th of 2026 to commemorate as a gift for the 250 years of the USA. And it's very impressive. It's going to be made of titanium, they're saying, supposedly to withstand the weather and the ages. So that is a very interesting thing, and I'll link an article below. You can check it out for yourselves. But interesting what's going on there. And so I want to jump in with, I think I might go straight to this whole situation of going, it's something I've been wanting to talk about now for over a week, and it has to do with the neutrino directed energy weapons. Okay, and in my mind, and hopefully you'll see the connections here, this is all interconnected with what's going on with this 3IAtlas, because we don't know what it is, but it certainly is significant. And I've been wanting to talk about, of course, dark journalist Daniel List always does such an amazing job. He's just an incredible researcher into what he calls the X factor, the X documents, like that detail basically the breakaway civilization and their connection to secret technology, all of it. Trump keeps alluding, to all of these weapons we have. We have things people don't know anything about. Well, he knows a lot about them because he's been studying them for 25 years, and he does a fantastic job. And he did the best interview that I have seen so far of this Raytheon whistleblower, Eric Hecker, about neutrino transmissions out of Antarctica. And as we continue to see all of these anomalies, all of these devastating, earthquakes, everything going on across the world, he basically has testified before the House Intelligence Committee, the Senate Intelligence Committee, basically the big guys in the skiffs, and had his testimony dismissed, skewed, disappeared, everything. But he was literally there in Antarctica when the directed energy weapons first went up online, dealing with neutrinos. And this was a way to create earthquakes, create directed energy weapons using satellites, all of it. And he was there. He went through the exposure to it that has Havana-like syndrome, Havana syndrome-like symptoms that he went through, the cognitive function, extreme fatigue, all the stuff that so many people report, that when you're around it, it then seems to then follow you your whole life, And he actually said in this interview, which I think is very interesting and true, is that once they have your, basically your DNA signature, they don't need, your cell phone. They don't, all this digital stuff that came later. They've been able to trace your DNA signature just by your DNA. It is its own antenna, and the technology exists to geolocate you or whatever by your DNA. So I wanted to get into his story here for a minute, and then we'll move on to the current topics of the news. Right. But basically, what we get here with Eric Hecker is in 2010 to 2011, he was in Antarctica for 366 days. He had been basically a systems maintenance guy for huge defense companies and their facilities on Long Island, which are massive, like Brookhaven and all of these facilities, like Brookhaven with its particle accelerator. There's all the stuff about Obama's, library, museum, weird, crazy looking Tower of Mordor thing there in Chicago that a lot of people were reporting on several years ago had some sort of mini particle accelerator underneath it, causing massive mayhem in the Chicago area and people acting totally crazy. That's an aside. But what Eric Hecker had to say was that when he first went to Antarctica and was part of Raytheon Polar Services, Centennial, Colorado, where he trained to go down there and be part of servicing this facility. He basically said that after several months in this facility, he had the health issues arise from the ELFs, from the extra low frequencies. And this was, massive skin outbreaks, brain fog, massive fatigue, cognitive decline, and that it was happening to everybody around them because they would do these safety drills, and the people in charge would tell them, "Oh no, we've turned it all off. You're good. Go on in there," right? And they wouldn't. It wasn't true. They didn't turn off the neutrino generating apparatus, and they all got hit with this stuff. And so while he was there, when they were doing a kind of proof of concept of this, what they call the ice cube neutrino detector, this was in 2011 during the directed energy weapons rollout. That's when they had the Christchurch earthquake, okay, in New Zealand. And they have this massive earthquake in New Zealand, and it was specifically it was done as a proof of concept of the weapon of this neutrino generator for directed energy to be able to hit specific places for these mass destructive events. And basically, what we see here is things like in WikiLeaks with Hillary Clinton, we had with WikiLeaks with Assange. Part of what was released during that WikiLeaks was Hillary Clinton responding to the Christchurch earthquake in 2011 and saying, it happened right on cue. It was perfectly done. Okay, knowing all about it, knowing what was going on. We've seen since the visits of all the, you have the head of the Orthodox Christian Church from Russia going to visit, um, um, uh, John Kerry, all these different heads of state with their visit down to Antarctica to go and view this weaponry. And Buzz Aldrin famously went there and said it's pure evil, and then he has this massive heart attack, right? Because this is the effect of being around this stuff that is not not at all safe to be around. And so you get Eric Hecker. Um, Basically coming and giving testimony at a skiff to Senate Intelligence Committee and Arrow, and we have the total cover up of his testimony. And in the past, and different investigations that have been done, this alien technology and UFOs and all of this. Um, um, it's this neutrino propulsion system that they talk about. And so this is what we're dealing with. And I think it's very interesting when we think of 3IAtlas and what's going on with its propulsion system and how it seems to emit these pulsed uh, emissions as it moves along through this spiral through the galaxy that is totally antithetical to any comet or anything we've ever seen before. And so it's very interesting to see, because when we have these neutrino systems in Antarctica, what Hecker was saying was that the Harper rays only have 2 dimensions on how they're able to operate and control the weather massively, control the space river, the lower atmospheric river, stealing that, changing the climate everywhere to do their bidding for their weather weapons and just weather control. And but what we get with this what they call the ice cube accelerator, we get this ice cube neutrino detector and accelerator. It is 3 dimensions. It's much more powerful and can be used in much more different ways when it comes to the earthquakes and other massive events that go on. And so I just wanted to bring this up today because I think that we're seeing something that is going to be coming to fruition, that there's going to be some events coming up here very soon that are going to be, and I hope not. However, major cataclysms, major experiences that people might go through as these, the combination, my fear, I'll just put it out there, is that they're going to use or are using, as NASA's gone dark and everything's gone dark and nothing can be detected of what's going on between our technology here on Earth, especially in the USA, and this body called 3IAtlas, of what could be going on between the neutrino weaponry in Antarctica and the 3IAtlas, and what might be happening in this kind of war footing. And I think it's interesting to posit that, because I don't really hear anyone positing how our advanced technology could be intending to interact with this body, and how we're so in the dark about it and not being told what could be happening. And within all of this, within Eric Hecker and his testimony and his whistleblowing, he talked about having all the sort of voice to skull things happening, that definite, like thoughts implanted in his head and those of the people around him. All of these anomalies that we equate with advanced psychotronic weaponry, he was experiencing there and has since, as well as other people involved in this project in Antarctica. And so, this can only be, of course, totally controlled by our own spiritual, maturity and sovereignty, and the importance of developing your telic center, developing your connection to Christ, and being, knowing thyself, right? Being in control of your own thoughts, your own mind, knowing when there is intervening things coming in. And it gets harder and harder as the technology is used more and more forcefully, which I believe we're seeing constantly as this time is coming, where people are having a reckoning of coming to God, coming to their spiritual awakenings, coming to Christ, understanding the Christ consciousness of know thyself, and just the golden ruler, what it means to be good and be connected to God, and the attempt to override that by the digital matrix takeover that they keep trying to entrap us in, and how we have to fight that constantly, and that we are, we're dealing with just the massive digital bullying, right? The digital matrix control to try to capture us into this constantly being fixated on the 3D world, this or that news story, everything constantly going, following the rabbit hole, all of it. When the larger life, of course, is our connections to God and what we do with our consciousness in our days and as we go through life. And so, as we all want to watch the incredible, of course, the Great Awakening, the attempts to overthrow globalism, and which is happening more now than ever, we also be aware that we're dealing with the combating of this dark force, and that the entrapment or the addiction to news, the addiction to constant mayhem is part of the plan of the cartels, of the Satanists, right? Of the people who want to control us, control you, is through this constant feeding of news, needing to know more news. It's a never-ending cycle. It will never end. There will always be news. However, how about your consciousness, right? What are you hearing from God? What's the news? What's the good news, right? What is the real reality that transcends this moment? And this moment is crucial. Don't get me wrong. It is crucial that we get active, that we participate, go to Chase NJ, go to Chase, New Jersey, chasenj.com, get involved, get Chitterelli in. We need to do all these things, but we have to take time out for our consciousness and understand that there's a huge war on for not just our minds, but our consciousness. And something really spectacular is going on here with this situation with 3IAtlas and just the total blackout of news about it. And so much so that the government shut down. Most of them are gone from Washington. NASA's closed, just like the massive 50-year interim between, anything NASA to do with all the shuttles and all the flights and all the interspace flights and all of it. So I think it's all for a purpose, and hopefully we will see a lot more about what that purpose is going forward. Okay, so I will move on from there to talk about what I think, and I will link below the great video by Dark Journalist with Eric Hecker, so you can watch the whole thing. It's very fascinating, and it's just very detailed. It's a great interview, the best one I've seen with Eric Hecker since he's been blowing this whistle on the time when the directed energy weapon at Antarctica got activated in 2010, 2011, and the Christchurch earthquake proof of concept, and Hillary Clinton's, basically saying yes, that went spectacularly right on time. Think Haiti, right? Okay, so let's move on from there. I want to go into What's been going on here with, well, a couple things. We've got, of course, as JD Vance has, went to Israel, and now we've got Rubio there, and they do this, vote of just a vote in Knesset just to mock JD Vance, speaking about Christ in Israel. That we have the vote to annex the West Bank, right, and just throw in the face and mock. It's very interesting, but to mock everything that's going on, right? And so we're seeing today again the doubling down of there being, Rubio coming out and saying, again to Israel, this, you're not moving in to Gaza. This is not going to go anywhere. And frankly, your total disregard and just basically trying to mock Vance for his stand there and for his standing for Christ there, I think was very, very important. Because when we look at this whole situation of the Abrahamic religions, how it's just, it's created as a, in my mind, I'm not an Abrahamist, okay? I believe that Christ came to free the people from the Abrahamist stranglehold from the Pharisees, and that we have no connection with the other religions that, I'm not even a religionist, that of these control mechanisms that don't believe in Christ either, at all. And so it doesn't make any sense to lump us all together. And I believe that's part of the mind slavery that we all deal with constantly. And I also believe it's part of the unraveling that is going forward now in the Trump administration as we're moving along. Very interesting that we get a huge pushback from Idaho to the Qatari training base there, and while Trump is trying to make this Qatar focus basically a way to control Israel, that's really what it is. The Qatar focus is a way to control the Greater Israel Project and shut down this destruction that would basically mean the destruction of Israel at the end of the day, and to have an alliance to show Israel that we are training, these fighter pilots here in the U.S. So that they can protect themselves against what you might do. And while there is, of course, the massive, huge, situation of the Muslim Brotherhood money coming out of Qatar, the Hamas money, all of it, along with multiple other things coming out of Qatar, what the point has been is to basically put Israel on its back foot after having decades and decades of control over the U.S. Pentagon, okay? And of course, massively, that was with 9/11 and everything that came after. And Rumsfeld himself saying we have more Mossad here in the Pentagon right now than anybody else, barking orders at us. And so that's what Trump is doing in this situation. However, the people in Idaho have already been overrun by Muslim migrants, okay, chosen, just basically targeted for being the huge Americana state that it is, totally believing in, faith, family, country that Idaho has been for so long. And with Boise, you had just the massive influx from California, just the targeted move in to turn Boise blue. In Idaho, they had, of course, had that designated as a refugee resettlement area, and you had massive amounts of Somalis, all kinds of people. You'd go to a farmer's market there, and there would be, just the whole farmer's market was Muslim, like just a full takeover of the area. And what we see here is that they're really pissed off about this Qatar training base. And you get Representative Heather Scott and also Senator Brian Lenny really sounding the alarm, because they're saying, well, we're already overrun here with refugees into our small town that are bringing Islam in. We don't want to be Hamtramck, Michigan. We don't want to be Dearborn. We want our state to not move in the direction of Islam. And so, you have the Trump administration basically bringing in these 12 F-15 fighter jets, but 300 personnel out of Qatar are coming. Okay, so that's a huge amount. Okay, that's different than sending your pilots over. That's a large amount of people. Basically, this is a small town of Mountain Home. The population is only 17,000. They don't have the housing for their own people because they're already dealing with this all the crap of the Muslim invasion. But they basically are saying, we don't want this. We are a small town of 17,000 people. We already have a housing problem. And so there's going to be also 150 more U.S. Military brought in addition to what's already there at that air base. And so there's a huge call to say, no, we don't want this. And I think it's going to be a hard push because, it doesn't have to be Idaho, why Idaho, right, for this base? It does seem odd, but it is a training base. They have people from Singapore, they train pilots from Singapore, from other places. And I think that's in Trump's mind, the situation of Qatar is a Singapore type place. But in our minds, who are dealing with constantly the Muslim invasions of our cities and towns, it is much more dire and difficult because of what we see happen when this happens. So, Mountain Home mayor, again, with the mayors, why you're being involved in local governance is so important, because the Mountain Home mayor is just inviting it in, so excited, it's so great, it's going to be a wonderful multicultural opportunity and event for everyone living there. But the people living there are saying, no, we don't want this massive multicultural event. We don't want Islam, taking over our town. So I'll keep you up to date on that. Qatar is a Sharia state, and so there's no getting around that. While it only has 450,000 of its own residents, the rest of the people living there are millions of Southeast Asians who are doing the labor, building everything and servicing everything. So that is something we're going to keep checking out, and I'll get back to you on that as more comes up. Okay, and so and just a reminder, there was no Muslims allowed to run for office in the US until 1992. It was made illegal in, I believe, 1952. They pointed that out. And then, of course, everything changed where they were going to use Muslims as the violent broom to take down the West and create this new, situation of taking over the Middle East and having there be a new holy war, all of it, which, of course, creating radical Islam, the push for the caliphate, giving that so much juice. And so in November 18th, 1992, you had the McCarran-Warner Act repealed by George H.W. Bush with the support of Chuck Schumer, right? That's how long he's been around. Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Dick Cheney, Mitch McConnell, John Kerry, John McCain, Al Gore, all of the globalists of both sides. It's a nonpartisan desire. Remember, support, sponsor a mujahideen. That is what happened there, and hence where we are at now, as we hear with things like we've got, again, Forbidden News doing a great job here with the report on Tony Saruga getting to Mamdani here, which is, it was great to see that last debate of him being demolished by both Sliwa and Cuomo. Just fantastic and spectacular. However, that's, the segue from what I was just talking about and referencing is with Tony Saruga. He's basically a whistleblower from, let's get here. Whistleblower from CIA NSA contractor who became a whistleblower talking about what's going on here. He's a big data analyst, and he basically tracks, he geofences and geotracks digital devices, cell phones, laptops, etc., pegs who they are and follows them around. And he had reported, I think this was back in June, again, Forbidden.news, always doing a great job. She's fantastic. I always support her. And I'll link it below. But basically, that he had geo-tracked Mamdani's phone, that in early 2025, he was in um, Barack Obama's DC mansion meeting with Obama, and that others were there at the same time who he tracked at the same time. And these were Muslim Brotherhood leaders and at least 2 Iranian MOIS agents, and that they had 2 meetings within 6 months of 6 weeks of each other. And remember, back in uh, was it March? Way back in the early Mamdani, I was reporting how Mamdani had, maybe it was the summer, but he was, he got married secretly, and then you had this whole trip to Africa and all of this, said to be meeting with Muslim Brotherhood there. And now we're getting this massive news that he has been meeting with Obama, which, that's not talked about. Obama, while supporting him, hasn't come out and said, and by the way, I'm the head of what Mamdani is doing, but it makes perfect sense as we move forward and see, with the election coming up so soon, in another 2 weeks, we could be facing this Islamist running the most important city in our country in regards historically to do with financial, with our finances of this country, the Fed Bank, all of it. It's a very, very dire situation, and we continue to watch what's going on there. And I wanted to, of course, mention, of course, we had Letitia James pleading not guilty, coming out and preaching to everybody how she believes, it was just so ridiculous because it's a prima facie case, okay, that she did these things that have to do with mortgage fraud. And they have very stiff penalties of, she could be facing, huge amounts of years in jail and huge amounts of fines for what she did. I think it's like $1 million fine for each count, 15 to 30, 50 years in jail. And she comes out and basically says, this is weaponization of government. This is an attack on its retribution and all. I mean, basically every single thing she did and said and ran on to do to Trump is what she came out today. She looked very scared, even though she kept saying no fear, trying to get this mantra going trying to convince herself. But she looked very scared, and I think we're going to be seeing some massive stuff coming out of this Letitia James case. She's praying for a miracle to come up on her side, that something will be happening. But this is something that I predict Letitia James won't be winning. And we get her niece, to whom she rented that property in Virginia to, that is part of this case, Nakia Thompson, who is a repeat offender, I guess. Just has a kind of major criminal record. Nakia Thompson was arrested and just recently again on October 9th for threatening, I believe, the school principal. It might have been a different official, but I think it was right up into the principal level, where her kids attend school, and then she was arrested on for those threats on October 9th. So this is, this whole situation of Letitia James. And so we also look at this guy, Graham Plattner, right? And he is this paramilitary ex-Marine guy, trust fund baby, out of Maine, who they're trying to say is like the populist, white face of the future kind of thing in Maine. That is completely a deep state operator, who Bernie Sanders came out and defended his Nazi tattoo that he has on his chest. You're just like, what? Ex-Marine, think the Ukraine mercenaries, think how they've been running all these attacks on everybody, okay? Whether it was Root, with the attempted assassination of Trump, whether it was the guy who tried to kill Robert Pico or Pico, I always get that confused, in Slovakia. He was arrested recently, sentenced to 20 years in prison, I think at least, for attempting to kill the president of Slovakia, Pico, and he shot him point blank like several times. He was another one of these Ukrainian mercenaries. You get all of these people that are in these paramilitary contractor groups that all working through the Middle East to recruit people, create all this stuff. And this guy, Graham Plattner, really fits the bill. This ex-Marine Nazi tattoo guy being defended by Bernie Sanders, Mr. Moscow marriage, right? He's like Tim Waltz with his Tiananmen Square marriage. Well, this is the guy who has been running the Socialist Rifle Association, or not running it, but doing the paramilitary training for the leftist insurrectionist cabal that they're trying to train for this civil war scenario they're trying to pull off. And just a reminder, just barely getting any press, but there is supposedly still this march of the No Kings faction, this rally in DC coming up on November 4th or November 6th, I believe. And I will double check that for next time. But yeah, so this guy, Graham Plattner, trying to go up against, what's her name? Going up against Janet Mills, I believe, running for you. He's trying to take her Senate seat, who she's radical enough, but he's sort of way beyond that. He kind of faked that he's like your down home oyster farmer guy of Maine. Couldn't be further from the truth. He's basically a trust fund kid who became a mercenary. And now they're sticking him into this run to become part of the Senate. So these are the kind of crazy things that's why it's just, again, as I keep mentioning, so important to be involved in your local governments, in being able to identify these people as they pop up, and to rally and organize the local populations against them. That people who know each other, who are in community with each other, as all these states like Maine get overrun by, the liberals out of Massachusetts and Rhode Island, came up there, moved in over, before COVID, but definitely COVID, tons of people moving up into Maine and just plotting this next stage. And Maine has just been overrun again with Muslim migrants, just massively. Okay, and they target these old conservative, down east, right? That's Maine. They the last bastion of conservatism there in the New England area, targeted for demolition, targeted for takeover, targeted for all this activism. And now we get Graham Plattner is what we end up with now, and that's what's going on. Okay, and so it's going to be a bit of a short one here on a Friday. I wanted to just get into Arctic frost before I go, because it is beautiful to see that now. Chuck Grassley, who just is so fantastic on getting out all of the declassified information, working closely, of course, with Tulsi Gabbard, who has done such a great job. Well, what Grassley has put out, that's very clear that they have Zoom calls, they have video, they've got stuff that they're isn't public totally, but it's coming out. And of course, the memo coming out that Grassley was declassified, and that he finally got released from the DOJ. That Lisa Monaco, basically was the brainchild of weaponizing the contesting of an election, when literally even the National Archives head of the National Archives came out and said, this happens every single election. You always get people coming in and putting in alternate electors. They contest the elections almost every single time. But it was Lisa Monaco, of course, with Merrick Garland's permission and signing off, and Chris Wray of the FBI being involved in the organizing of the what became the total surveillance on the 9 senators and the 92 people and organizations connected with Trump or connected with the MAGA populist movement that allowed them to roll out what became trying to charge Trump with these, espionage, treason, treason type type uh, indictments, shall we say, that what we had here was this memo authorizing Arctic frost was based on Trump questioning the 2020 election being used as a predicate to a crime, which it is not and has never been. But they created this crime that has never been, okay, which is questioning an election, which we saw massively in 1968. They did it 2000, 2004, 2016, Hillary Clinton, contesting the election, all of her operatives. We heard it constantly. We heard it back with the Al Gore, George W. Bush election. It was just major, and that was all fine. It's legal. That's a legal thing. But they had to create the Fedsurrection. They had to create what happened with January 6th in order to force that this is a crime. And so those things are all in tandem, and just the building and building and building of what has been, what is, attempted overthrow of the U.S. government that they were executing. And so this is what it's coming out that's very clear that Lisa Monaco, as Trump is always saying, Lisa Monaco, and we are all saying now for years and years, being, of course, Merrick Garland's, real brainchild, the one who executed all of this criminal indictment ideas towards Trump. And having it out in the open is very exciting. Let's hope that we get to see this fake crime predicate and the creation of the impeachment number 2, just all of it, that there is Lisa Monaco indictment coming, I would say, and I think it's fantastic. And we're seeing that Trump, one good thing during the shutdown is so many of his nominees are going through getting made legit through the Senate, and it's fantastic because we're seeing so many judges finally getting in that we need so much, circuit and district court judges, and so that's happening. But they're going after, you're seeing Comey going after Lindsey Halligan in Virginia, and the judge trying to let stop this Adam Schiff grand jury indictment from going forward for his mortgage fraud. There's just a lot going on, but there's a lot going on the other side too. You have people like Heather Honey, who huge in Arizona for everything election fraud, being brought into the administration to help in the weaponization of government to do with the elections, the election steal. That's very great and excellent news. And we're going to be seeing, I think, in January, according to Article 3 Project, ap3.org, we're seeing that in January we should be seeing in Southern Florida, in the Southern District, we're going to be seeing a grand jury that is being impaneled that will be the conspiracy versus rights to do with the Mar-a-Lago raid. And this will be massive. This will be massive. And so we're going to be, prayers for that hugely. And I think on the way out, I will just mention there was that fantastic, this fantastic meetup yesterday at the White House when they were talking about, of course, going after cartels and all of them. There was Gabbard again talking about how she has been working as director of national intelligence with the military in Mexico and the police in Mexico and intelligence to go after the cartel members that way. You have Trump always praising Scheinbaum, like up and down and all around, but basically saying, they're the government's controlled by the cartels. Big surprise. We have the Gerald Ford barrel carrier group, the 10th drug vessel blown up today, and the going against the people waging war on this country in hemispheric defense. Okay, that it's no longer we're just the USA is defending the world's democracies, basically regime changing. No, the US is fighting the people destroying our country. Okay, and that's what's happening here. And Venezuela being so uber connected with all of it. Okay, with a staging ground for the Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, for the huge creating of passports for Islamist operatives to be able to enter the USA, for the Chinese to totally stage everything they're doing, going through Venezuela and then uber connected through Colombia and on up the chain. And so what Odinai Gabbard, she was talking about the capture of El Plato, the Sinaloa cartel leader, which is fantastic. And she made a point of talking about CJNG, I believe CJNG, the cartel with La Diabla, the psycho sick woman who was captured through her getting intelligence, coordinating with the Mexican military and police to arrest La Diabla and shut down her operations, which was basically a baby farm to where women were kept in slavery, impregnated, and forced harvest of those babies that were then sold, or their baby parts, uh, used, stolen, organ harvesting, and all of it. So the most disgusting of the most disgusting being stopped by Odinai Gabbard and Hexas military and the intelligence. So it's very interesting to watch as this is going down. We have Stephen Miller, of course. He is the head of domestic policy in the White House, kind of the brainchild behind this cartel roundup, and so fantastic to be doing. I think it's just so wonderful. But basically saying that Trump's actions to take out the cartels in the USA and criminally warring against the USA is the single largest public safety anti-crime action in U.S. history. And I would say that's true considering where we've gotten to and how they were elevated by the Biden crime network. And so I'm going to leave it there for tonight. We have Putin, of course, coming out. We'll end with this. Putin coming out and saying, this isn't going to be the end all against us for the these secondary sanctions with where Rosneft and all of it. We're fine. And basically, what Trump is harming by putting these sanctions on Rosneft is and other the other oil company of Russia is that we're just seeing that we're going to see places like Germany and it's mostly going to hurt Europe, and that's because they are all the while hair on fire. Russia is going to invade Europe, which is complete BS. They have been the ones that can't afford not to have Russian oil, and they don't want to have the U.S. Energy because the U.S. has been designated for destruction, and so they get the cheap, close by, of course, Russian oil and natural gas. And with Rosneft, you had Merz, the head of Germany, the Chancellor of Germany, coming out and saying, well, we're going to be asking for an exemption from the U.S. when it comes to Rosneft, because we even refine that oil here in Germany, and of course Germany, I think it's about 15% of their energy, that comes just from that alone. And so it's just hysterical and amazing as they beg and beg for these secondary sanctions. Trump puts them on, and they say, "Oh, but not us, Germany." So it's very, very interesting to see how this is all going down. And there is talks already now again to recreating that meetup between Trump and Putin, and those peace talks to be renegotiated. Because as I keep saying, this is all to expose the players here that are the ones who cried wolf, that are just trying to do what their puppet handlers are telling them in this World War III scenario. So very exciting, very good, very amazing. Okay, and so I think I'm going to leave it there. I do have more, but I am going to leave it there. Yes, I am. Friday night, and I've got to move on. But I thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you um, enjoyed the show and that you found something new or valuable. If you did, please support the channel. There's ways to do so below, and it is so appreciated. I hope you enjoy your weekend and get out with real people off devices doing human things and in nature enjoying it and praying and communing with God, of course, and moving towards the good, towards God, towards enlightening your life, right? And I will mention my incredible sponsor, c60evo.com/YAFTV, who might help you do that as far as increased focus, better mood, just an upliftment overall that you experience with taking this incredible molecule, the ESS60, most purified carbon-60 in the world, made in the best lab in the world, in the reactor, okay, in Houston, Texas. c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off, or you get 15% off if you have ever donated to the channel or decide to do so. And that separate link and code will be emailed to you immediately. But for inflammation, for radiation protection, a lot of people are saying, oh, there's less chemtrails since, the shutdown. No. I mean, that's great where it's happening, but in what I'm seeing and other people are telling me, really, really heavy chemtrails lately, and the effects are nasty. And so get the garbage out of your cells. This goes right into your mitochondria, right into your neurons, deepest parts of your cells, cleaning the garbage out using your hormones, your melatonin, your glutathione, the master hormone, to basically capture the garbage and helps them to pull it out of your cells, get rid of it. And cellular health, longevity for your cellular health is the number one thing that we all need to fight these degenerative diseases. And healthy cells can't be sick, okay? Whether it's your central nervous system, your brain function, your cardiovascular system, all of it, healthy cells can't be sick. And so cleaning them out is central and paramount. So check it out, c60evo.com. Maybe I'll put my little ticker on here for a second. c60evo.com/YAFTV. Use the code YAFTV for 10% off. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. You are free. Keep the prayers up. It's an incredible time. And yeah, let's just pray and put on that full armor of God and know that we were born here for this time to do what we're doing. Make the best of your time, all of it, every moment, make it count. You are free, and I'll see you Monday.